Welcome to the Torah Perspective. A few days before Shavuot, the festival of weeks, where we count 7 weeks from Pesach until Shavuos, and on the 50th day we have Shavuos. And Shavuos we call Zman Mattan Torah, the season of the receiving or the giving, really, of our Torah. It doesn't say Hashem's Torah. It says Torah Seinu, our Torah. And if you think about it, that is very right, because Hashem's Torah, the Torah Shebichsav, the written Torah, was not given on Shavuos. It wasn't. The first Sefer Torah was written by Moshe Rabbeinu on the last day of his life, 40 years later. He wrote 13 Sefer Torah. One he put in the Oren, and each one of the 12 Shvatim got a copy. And that is how the written Torah was given. So when your children and your grandchildren come home from Cheder, from school, from Jewish lesson, with pictures of Har Sinai with a Sefer Torah descending on top, that is a little bit of a misleading picture. So what then does it mean that Shavuos is Zman Matan Torah, the season of the giving of our Torah? Okay, that's not question number one. Question number two is, why do we read Megillas Rus on Shavuos? As we know, the 5 Megillas are read at 5 different times of the year. 3 of them are read on the 3 Regalim, on the 3 pilgrim festivals, and one of them is Megillas Rus, which is read on the Shavuos. Now, I want to go into Megillas Rus, and with that exploration, possibly find out what is it that makes Megillas Rus the story to tell to ourselves on Shavuos. Now, there's a danger with our familiarity with the book, the story. We know it, right? For that matter, there is a danger in our familiarity with any book, with any text. Familiarity breeds contempt. Well, maybe not in the case of hallowed texts like the Megillah or Megillas Rus, but if not contempt, then it creates a certain superficiality where certain ideas that are lodged in our mind stay with us, and we have a preconception of what we're reading. There is a pasuk in Parshas Re'eh, and the pasuk in Parshas Re'eh reads as follows: Ki atem ovrim es hayarden, you are now crossing the Yarden, the Jordan River, Lovar loreshes es ha'oretz, to come and inherit the land asher Hashem Elokeichem nosein lochem, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to him. Virashtem also, you will inherit it. Vishavtem ba, and you will live in it. You will settle in it. And what is the next pasuk? The next pasuk says, Ushemartem la'aser es kol hachukim ve'es kol hamishpotim asher anochi nosein livnechem hayom, and you will keep there all the institution, all the judgments, and all the way of life that I have commanded to, that I am giving to you. Asher anochi nosein livnechem, that I put before you hayom, today. Even before you enter into the land, you are about to enter the land, I'm giving you the rule book by which you should live. Now, we have a medrash on that pasuk that says, Asher orachi nosein livnechem hayom, those words which I place before you today, b'chol yom yiyu chavivim aleichem, every day, hayom, today, they should be dear to you, Ki'ilu hayom kibaltem osom mehar Sinai, as if today you received them from Sinai. Now, mind you, that's not the Sefer Torah, as I pointed out. It is something else, which we call Mattan Torah, the giving of our Torah, that happened on Sinai, and you should the words of this Torah, which is not the written words of the written Torah, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about another event, the beginning of our story to live with Torah, with a revelation that is ongoing over 40 years. This is at the beginning, the very inception of this revelation, where all we had was this experience of Har Sinai, where we stood, where we stood united as one nation, and embarked on a history together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? The beginning of our history as a people. Our freedom we got by leaving Mitzrayim. Our destiny we got at Har Sinai. Now, then the Medrash continues, and it says, V'yiyu regilim befichem, and it should be regilim, it should be as an exercise, a targil, as an exercise in your mouth. In other words, you should be fluent with them, as if you heard them today. That's a contradiction. If they are familiar to you to such an extent that you constantly are aware of them, why is it that ki'ilu hayam shematem also? Today you heard them. This is the miracle of Divrei Torah. The miracle of Divrei Torah is that they are old words that are new every time you hear them. That they must be new every time you hear them, because you are in a living relationship to those words. In other words, they are not some holy book that comes out of heaven and here it is in front of you. All you have to do is accept it. This is the final revelation of the prophet. No, this is the beginning of a relationship. The beginning of a relationship by which we mean that lo bashumayim he is not in heaven. It's given to you to make something out of it, to understand it, and to keep on learning it. That's why learning Torah and speaking about Torah is the lifeblood of the Jewish people, not echoing what previous generations have said without critically thinking about it. No, on the contrary, you never throw away what previous generations have said, not at all, but you always engage with the text anew every day. Okay, so every day, Divrei Torah should be beloved to you as if you received them today from Sinai, and yet they should be familiar to you all the time. They are old stroke new words. So let's look at Megillas Rus in that light. Okay, what do we know about Megillas Rus? Let's ask a couple of questions. Who is this story about? Who is this Rus? What is this girl really all about? Where does she come from? What makes her do what she does? And maybe even more important, what makes her not do what she does not do? I'll come to that. And what are her special gifts? In what merit does she become the great-grandmother of David HaMelech? She is known in Jewish tradition as Eim HaMalchus, the mother of kingdom. She's a Moabite girl. How is she the mother of kingdom? What is this, her special quality that makes her earn that position? Now, and how does this relate to Mattan Torah? It seems to me that there are two themes in this book. The first and most obvious one is that Ruth is indeed the great-grandmother of David HaMelech, of King David, and therefore she's the ancestress of Moshiach, right? She is the root of the Messianic kingdom, right, of the Malchus-based David, which is not just a political entity in a certain period of history, but it is a perspective over the whole of human history from the beginning until the end of the history of the Jewish people. It is the destination to which we all are heading. It is the fulfillment of history. It's the true end of history. Okay, now, the second thing that we know about her is that she is the poster girl for what a convert looks like, right? Her story, the words that she says to Naomi, and they never fail to touch us. Ki el asher telchi elech, where you will go, I will go. Uasher Tolini Olim, where you will spend the night, Aaron will spend the night, Imoch, with you. Imech, with you. Ami, Amech Ami, your nation is my nation. Elokai, Elokai. Your God is my God. I will go where you go. I associate myself with you. All right. Now, what is the background of this? She is called a Balas Chesed. She's called somebody who does Chesed. And we think of that in a rather naive way. We think that her Chesed is that she looks after her widowed mother-in-law. That's the mental picture that we have. That's the Chesed that she has. Well, the Torah is very concerned about caring for the weak in society, for widows, for orphans, definitely. But that's not what the story is about. If you want to hear what the story is about, you have to hear what the Megillah itself says. Actually, this goes back on a mitzvah that we have in the Torah, which we learn in Parshas Kiseitze. No, sorry, in Parshas Kiseitze we learn about Ruth's background. Ruth was a Moabite, and Moabites are suspect. Moabites cannot marry into the Jewish people. And for two reasons. A, they did not welcome us with water and bread when we passed through the land and we were hungry and they were unkind to us. And B, they hired Bilam to curse us. And when that strategy didn't work, they sent their girls to us to seduce Jewish men. And through this seduction, he also seduced them to another form of immorality, namely idol worship, right? And there are sources in our tradition that say that Ruth or her grandmother, but some sources say Ruth herself, was involved in that. She was involved in that. She was among the worst perpetrators. Now, that I must emphasize this is not a universal opinion. It's only a few sources that suggest this, but it tells us she has a tainted background, and this this tainted background played a role in David HaMelech's own life when King Shaul called him Ben Yishai as a kind of a dig at his ancestry to say that he was really not from a proper family. Okay, we won't go into all this, the problems around this. I'm not interested in pilpulim, in finding clever solutions to problems. And likewise, I'm not going to go into her status. How could she have been married to a Jewish boy if she wasn't already a convert, right? After all, she was the widow of one of the sons of Elimelech, right? So presumably she was converted already. I'm not going to go into that. What I do want to say, because that's not the matter here. The matter is she kosher? Is a Moabite girl the right shidduch for Boaz, with whom she actually marries? Now, we call her a Balas Chesed. We say that the fact that she's called a Balas Chesed has nothing to do with the fact that she was kind to her mother-in-law. That's not the point here, because when it comes to her chesed, actually Nomi herself says what this chesed is. I have to scroll down a bit. It is Boaz who says to Ruth, who got Li? It has been told to me, Kol asher osis es amoseich acharei maus ishech. Everything that you have done, it is told to me, I've had to report everything that you have done for your mother-in-law after your husband died. Now, that's still ambiguous. does she mean everything that you did for your mother-in-law, that you cared for her? Well, you can see what she means by what follows. Mattan Nomi lishtei kalosera. When Naomi addresses her two daughters-in-law, she says, Shovno isho el beis imo. Each of you should return to your mother's house. Yas Hashem imochem chesed. May Hashem do chesed with you, kindness with you. Kasher asisem im hamesim, as you did with the ones that have died, v'imodi, and with me. And what is what Hashem should do for you in return for what you did for my dead sons and for me? Yitein Hashem lochem umetseina, and may you find menucho isha, base isha. May you find menucho, rest, isha, each of you, base isha, in the house of her husband. It's about marriage. It's not about caring for your mother-in-law. It's about yibum. What is yibum? Yibum is the marriage that you contract not for your own sake. A marriage that you contract because your brother died without children, and now you marry his widow. It's something we don't do. Right? It's something that was abolished by our sages. Not abolished. You can't abolish something that's written in the Torah, but we now say, no, you have to give chalitza, you have to not contract this marriage, because we're not on a level that we can do this the way the Torah has commanded it. But the idea behind it is a very fundamental idea. The idea behind it is your life is not yours to live. You live your life for someone else who doesn't have it. Your brother left this world. His name will be forgotten. Now you marry his widow to establish his name, to give him a permanence in the world, in this physical world, by giving up your own. Because these children are not going to carry your name, they're going to carry your brother's name. Whether that's legally a fact or not is beside the point. The point is, what is the motivation behind Yibum? The motivation behind Yibum is not living for yourself, but living for someone else. And, in fact, we see, I'm not going to quote the psukim, I'm going to go into the matter of a name. What is a name? We find the phenomenon of a name in connection to, masculinity. The word for masculine is zohar in Hebrew, and the name for remembrance is zecher. This is what a man does. A man leaves a memory in the world by his children. The involvement of a man with his children on a physical level is very momentarily. He sires his children, but he is not the one who carries the child for 9 months in his body. That's the mother. He is not the one who cares for these children when they're vulnerable. He defends the outer borders, but inside the house, the mother is the one who nurtures. It's not the nurturing that he does. What he does is his presence in the world is being carried forth by his children. Chazal say that the son is the legs of the father. The father moves through the world. After he is gone, through his son. And as many of our gifts that we have received from our Maker, it has two sides. You can live and try to perpetuate your name in two different ways. You can do it by naming your city after yourself. You call it Constantinople, or you call it Alexandria, or you call it Monrovia after Monroe, or you call it Washington, D.C., right? Cities named after people. In fact, the very first city that the Torah mentions is when Cain has a son, and he's called Hanoch. And he builds a city, and he calls the city after his son Hanoch. The very first city mentioned in the Torah is named after a man. And we find this over and over and over again. We find that people put their stamp in the world by attaching their name and building monuments for themselves. Where do we find this in the Torah? We find this in the story of the Tower of Babel, right? In the Tower HaPelogo, that they said, Na'aseh lonu shem, let us make a name for ourselves. And what happens? They're being dispersed over the world. Their name is being destroyed by confusing their language, by sabotaging their unity, so that they cannot unite. Our sages say they united against God. They wanted to wage war against heaven. But the war in which they engaged with the divine presence was by letting their presence be dominant over his presence. They didn't live for his name, they lived for their own name. From that story, immediately we have the appearance of Avraham Avinu. Even before Lech Lecha, he is mentioned at the end of Parshas Noach. And what is the story there? There's a Terach. And the Terach has 3 sons. He has a son Avram, he has a son Nochar, and he has a son Horon. And he lives in Ur Kasdim. And Horon dies. Al Pnei Oviv, in the presence of his father, Be'eres Moladeto, where his youngest son was born in Ur Kasdim. And the youngest son leaves 3 children, Milcah, Yiscah, and Lot. And the 2 brothers, the 2 remaining brothers, marry their nieces. It is a form of Yibum. They looked after their dead brother's name by marrying his daughters, by giving them permanence. Avraham Avinu actually later on goes out of his way to rear Lot as his son, to carry on this. And in fact, we descend from all 3 brothers. We descend also from Nochar, clearly, right? We know that Nochar, Besuel, Lavan, from that line, we are descendants from him. And we also, David Melech descends from Horon. Why? Because Horon's son Lot had 2 daughters. And after the destruction of Sodom and Amorah, what happened? The 2 daughters, L'Shem Shemayim, they thought they were the last girls in the world, and they seduced their father. They made him drunk, and through an incestuous relationship, they gave birth to whom? To 2 boys, Moab and Ammon. And Moab is the ancestor of Ruth. So we say that Ruth is the descendant of somebody, of a person who tried to do the right thing. She used the wrong method. Incest is not the way. Even though they thought it was the last way possible, don't make up your own mind. Don't decide for yourself that this is now you have to do an avera, you have to do a transgression in order to receive a better good. Now let's look at the other person involved. Let's look at Boaz. Boaz also has a backstory, because Boaz is the descendant of Yehuda and Tamar. And Yehuda and Tamar is a similar Yibum situation. Tamar was promised to marry one of the sons. The one son died, she's entitled to marry the other son, right? Yehuda, her father-in-law, failed to fulfill his obligation. This is not Yibum according to the laws of Torah. This is before Mattan Torah. We're not going into this discussion, but the idea behind it is the same. The idea behind it is the same. And what does Tamar do? She said she forces history by seducing her father-in-law. Also a case of seduction. So that we have two strands coming together, Boaz and Moab, and Ruth, the Moabite, the Moabite girl, both come from the same chesed, from the same kindness, misapplied, misconstrued, a misconduct. But what's the Shem Shemayim? They did it for good reason. It's not the way to do it. Even the Shem Shemayim, you don't do it that way. You don't do it that way. And what happens now? Now, Ruth is in exactly the same position. Her husband is dead. Her father-in-law is dead. The family is going to die out. And her mother-in-law says, don't go this way, girls. There is nothing to be had here. I won't have another son. She says it in so many words. I won't have another son that could be your husband. Go back to Moab. They were, by the way, Moabite princesses. They were for high society in Moab. Go and marry a nice Moabite boy. And actually, one of the two girls, Orpah, said, yes, you're right, sensible. And she turned around. And Ruth says no. Ruth says, I don't care that I don't know how this will come about. I will take a chance. I will do what's right. And I will do it no matter what the circumstances. Just like Abraham Avinu married a girl who was, it says already at the time that he married Sarah, that she was an akor, that she was not fertile. She, as our sages say, she didn't even have a womb. Right? So we see somebody who does the right thing and leaves the solution to the Almighty. Does not take the initiative like Tamar did take the initiative. Like the daughters of Lot did take the initiative. And said, we make up our mind. No, she didn't do it. Naomi actually dressed her up. Naomi, if you read the story objectively, and by the way, the Al-Shich, a classical commentary, reads it that way. Naomi prepared her to seduce Boaz in the middle of the night, right? And she goes there. She goes into his bed, and he wakes up and he says, "Miat, who are you?" Now, how easy would it have been for Ruth to say to him, "Shh, over here," and seduce him? The text tells us that he had been eating and drinking. He was, She says, no. I am Ruth, I'm a Moabite, and I demand you should marry me. I demand that you should rise to the obligation that you have to your family, to your tribe, and do the right thing. Marry me. Okay, it's scandalous. Okay, everybody will talk about it. He died after the wedding night. Can you imagine what people said? Just resort for this man, that he just deserts for this man, that he married this girl that he shouldn't have married? What do you think will happen if somebody comes to London Bestin and says, here's the girl that crept in my bed last night, I want to convert her today? It's the scandalousness of the story is testimony to the tzidkus, to the righteousness of both Ruth and Boaz. Ruth, who took the initiative, but Boaz, who earlier, when he met her, said, oh, may Hashem give you the reward. No, the question is not, will Hashem give you the reward? The question is, will you, Boaz, rise up to the occasion? Therefore, and with that, I'm going to wrap up. The Megillah starts with, it was in the days that the judges judged. But one way of reading it is, it was on the day that the judges were judged. Because just like Yehuda, his ancestor, was the judge in the trial of his daughter-in-law who was found pregnant and was suspected of adultery, and he says, Tzaddik many, she is more righteous than I am, and he was willing to owe up to the fact that the judge became the judged. Likewise, Boaz, who had tried to fob off this girl and say, may Hashem give you your reward. No, when it came to the crunch, he said, I'll step up to the plate. I'll do what is right. I'll go to Beston tomorrow and I'll convince them that this marriage is kosher. So this is the moment of Mattan Torah. Because as we saw, before we went into Eretz Yisrael, we were told, you're coming to a land, you will inherit it, and you're going to have to live according to certain rules, according to certain directions for use of this land. You must, from now on, know that your fate is not in your hands. You are not the actor of your own fate. You are the actor of your own choices. And this is what she did. That is why it is Zman Mattan Torah, because it's only through our confrontation with the revelation of Har Sinai, when we had this unity, when we stood and we knew from now on, we will have to live with the Torah. We don't have a choice. But what we do have a choice is how we listen to these words, how we take them to heart every day, how we make them new every day as if we heard them from Sinai. I wish you a good Yom Tov. I hope to post this in time before Yom Tov.